How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. With the opening of free agency quickly approaching, many NBA teams are already locked in on which free agents they want to target, and with the Lakers currently only having 5 players under guaranteed contracts, they likely have many free agents on their radar, while they will very likely be looking to bring back many of their own free agents, which include players like Talen Horton-Tucker, Alex Caruso, and Dennis Schroeder. They will also be targeting the free agents of other teams too. And to help give you an idea of who they may be targeting and who I believe they should be targeting in particular, in this video, we'll go over who I think should be the top 10 free agents on their radar going into free agency. But before we get into my top 10, you need to have a basic understanding of how much money they have to work with, what positions on their team they need to prioritize, and what kind of skills they might be looking for. And to give you a brief overview of all of that, they have no cap room available to them, which means the only spending power they will have will be through veteran minimum contracts and the mid-level exception, worth either $5.9 million or little over $9.5 million, depending on if they stay under the tax apron or not. So that rules out targeting players like DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry, Michael Conley, and even mid-tier free agents like Tim Hardaway Jr. Then for what position they need the most, that can be argued, but to me, I think they need to target versatile wing players who can play at both small forward and power forward, and then also target another point guard too. Then for what kind of skill set they are looking for, I believe their top 3 needs are to number 1, target reliable 3-point shooters, preferably ones that can both shoot the 3 and defend at a high level, aka 3-and-D players. Number 2, add more secondary playmakers, and number 3, add a center that can protect the rim and fit well on the court with Anthony Davis. All of that is a brief overview of what you need to know about the Lakers going into free agency in my opinion. And even though I've made videos about a number of free agents already, that does not guarantee that they will be all included in my top 10. While I do like every one of them as a target, my top 10 is looking at a combination of the best value, fit, and talent available. It was very difficult for me to leave a few players off in particular, and to even rank my favorite top 10, but hopefully this gives you a good idea of who I believe they should be targeting. And with all that being said, let's get into my top 10, and coming in at number 10, we got Furkan Korkmaz. If you have been keeping up with my content for a couple of weeks now, you'll remember that I dedicated an entire video to Furkan Korkmaz, and while it might seem a bit odd for a 23-year-old to be a good free agent target for a contending team like the Lakers, let me briefly explain to you why it would be. Furkan not only fits their need of more 3-point shooting, but he is also improving as a defender and already has a good amount of playoff experience, and most importantly, he could likely be had for relatively cheap. He has flown heavily under the radar as a player, even while putting up good numbers during the past couple of years. He has never made more than a minimum level contract, even after being a free agent last year and coming off of having a good season, and considering his numbers did not take a big jump from last year either, I do not expect him to be offered more than a minimum level contract again, and that should absolutely attract a team like the Lakers who need a player like him. He would add much needed 3-point shooting to their team. He has the height and length to play as small forward, which would be very important if they trade Kyle Kuzma. He is an improving wing defender, and he is only getting better. If they could get a young player like him who fits what they need, while only being 23 years old and still improving, for around a veteran minimum level contract, that would be an absolute no-brainer in my opinion. But now moving on to number 9, where we have Otto Porter Jr. Number 9 might seem a bit low for a formerly great 3-and-D option like Otto Porter, but when you take into consideration how injury prone he has been during the past 3 years now, along with it probably taking a form of the mid-level exception to add him, it's hard to put him any higher than number 9. However, that does not mean he would not be a great target if he could be had at the right price. At one time, Otto Porter was regarded as one of the top 3-and-D players in the entire NBA, and while he no longer is regarded in the same way, he can still be a very good 3-and-D option when healthy. He is a career 40% 3-point shooter, which, coupled with his ability to play at small or power forward, he would make for a great fit on the court with LeBron and Anthony Davis. He would provide them with a lot of versatility on both ends of the court. I personally really like the fit of Otto Porter on the Lakers, and I do believe he should be on their radar, but we simply cannot forget about the risk of adding him either. He has only played in 42 combined games within the past 2 years, and that is a big red flag, especially for a Laker team that's already dealt with a lot of injuries. However, given his fit and potential to be had for a relatively low amount of money, I do think he should be a target for them, but not within their top 5 options. But now moving on to number 8, where we have Dwight Howard. The Lakers won't be looking to spend a lot of money on a 5, which makes a player like Howard a great player to target. They already know he can fit well on the court with LeBron and Anthony Davis, and he could be had for a veteran minimum. Even now at 35 years old, Howard can still provide adequate rim protection, be a lob threat, and bring valuable championship experience. He was a big part of their championship team, and he would bring a lot of that winning mentality back to their locker room. While the Lakers tried to experiment with Marc Gasol, Montrezl Harrell, and Andre Drummond, none proved to be near as good of a fit as Dwight. They really did miss the physicality and leadership that he brought to their team, and they should not hesitate to bring him back if he would be willing to rejoin them. While a miscommunication was the primary reason that he left last year, I don't think that created any bad blood between the two of them. If they made him feel like a priority during free agency, I think that would go a long way in helping to convince him to come back. And whether or not you like the idea of bringing back Dwight, you cannot deny that he is a proven fit on the court with LeBron and AD, and is one of the best options available at center for a veteran minimum contract. But now moving on to number 7, where we have Trevor Ariza. While he has probably been linked to the Laker team ever since he was traded back in 2009, I would not doubt to see him be brought back. Ariza could provide tremendous value for a veteran minimum contract. He is still a legitimate 3-and-D player in the NBA, and he proved that during his time with the Miami Heat this year. He was an immediate boost to their team on both ends of the court after being traded for at the deadline. He provides a ton of value by being able to play at either small or power forward in today's NBA while being a reliable corner and wing 3-point shooter. He is near lock to shoot at or above 35% from the 3-point line while providing high quality defense. He may not be the defender that he used to be, but he is still a very crafty and smart defender overall. He knows how to use his height and length to bother players on the perimeter, and he still causes a lot of turnovers for a player his age. He has maintained a lot of his athletic ability, which has helped him to remain relevant as a legitimate 3-and-D player yet. He may not be the best option available, but if he could be had for around a veteran minimum level contract, he would be a no-brainer target for them in my opinion. But now moving on to number 6, where we have Rudy Gay. I went back and forth on whether or not I wanted to include Rudy Gay in my top 10, primarily because he could be out of their price range if he wanted to be. He could join a bad or average team for more money, but then again, he could also take a pay cut to join a contending team too. He will be 35 years old at the beginning of the season, and that could lead to him taking less money to want to compete for a championship. And although he will be 35 years old soon, that does not mean he is washed up. Rudy is more than capable of providing 10 to 12 points per game off the bench while providing good defense and 3-point shooting. While he primarily plays at power forward nowadays, he can defend the perimeter, and he would actually be a very good small ball power forward to pair with Anthony Davis at the 5. He can provide 3-point shooting from the corner and wing while still being athletic enough to run the floor and defend multiple positions. He would be a sneaky good veteran addition to their team if he would be willing to take a pay cut. I could see him joining their team with the taxpayer mid-level worth around $5.9 million. He would provide them with a lot of versatility on both ends of the floor, and with another player who can create his own shot. He is not dependent on other players to create for him, and all of that would make him a very good addition to their team. But now moving on to number 5, where we have Doug McDermott. I dedicated an entire video to him a while back, and I still do not feel any differently about him being a good target for them. He is a very talented offensive player and would help take some of the scoring burden off LeBron and AD. McDermott had somewhat of a breakout year last year with Indiana, averaging nearly 14 points per game in only about 24 minutes per game, and while primarily coming off the bench. McDermott is not reliant on other players to create a shot for him, but at the same time, he is a very good off-ball player. He moves very well without the ball and can score from anywhere on the floor. He is a reliable 3-point shooter, is good from the mid-range, and can even hit tough shots off the dribble. He would really help open up their offense, and his efficiency would be greatly valued. He may not be a good defender, but at the very least, they can hide him at power forward, which is actually a lot easier than trying to hide a poor defender at point guard or shooting guard. I would not call him an outright liability, but he definitely is not a good defender. However, what he could provide them on offense, along with being a potential target with a form of the mid-level exception, I do think he would make for a very good player to consider. But now moving on to number 4, where we have Goran Dragic. Dragic would have been a bit higher on here if not for having a team option with Miami Heat, along with possibly being out of their price range too. However, it is very unlikely that the Heat will opt into his team option, given that he is no longer worth an $18 million contract, and with them already having Kendrick Nunn, Tyler Hero, and even Jimmy Butler handling point guard duties. And even though Dragic could probably join an average team for more money, I find it more likely that he takes a pay cut to remain with a contending team. And the Lakers, especially if they trade Shooter or are unable to retain him, would have a need at point guard. Dragic could potentially be a great fit for that role and an upgrade over Shooter anyways. He is a better playmaker and a better 3-point shooter compared to him. While he is not a good defender, Dragic would be a big addition to their offense. He can play off the ball to fit with LeBron on the court, but he could also handle playmaking duties when LeBron is on the bench. He is a very good playmaker for both himself and for his teammates. He is a very crafty player overall and would be a great addition for the right price. But now moving on to number 3, where we have Bobby Portis. While Portis may have played himself into a bigger contract after playing very well in the Eastern Conference Finals, I still think he would be a great fit for the Lakers, especially if he could be had for a form of the mid-level exception. And if Milwaukee gets beat in the finals, or if he falls out of their rotation again, his value will go down, which would improve their odds of being able to sign him, and I do think he should be a player that they consider. Bobby Portis has had a great year, averaging over 11 points per game in under 21 minutes per game while shooting an incredible 47.1% from the 3-point line. He played very well on the court with Giannis. I think that he would be able to perform in a similar way on the court with Anthony Davis. He can provide 3-point shooting while playing at either the 4 or 5, and he moves really well without the ball for a big. I personally would love to see how he and Anthony Davis could fit on the court together. It would be very difficult to cover both of them, given their ability to shoot, and they would also make a great rebounding duo. While Bobby Portis cannot be regarded as a good defender, I think AD could cover up for a lot of his defensive inability. But now moving on to number 2, where we have Nicolas Batum. If you would have told me a year ago that Nick Batum would be one of, if not the most valuable 3-and-D player in the league this year, I would have had a very hard time believing you. But honestly, it really is hard to deny that he wasn't. Given how well he performed while only being paid a veteran minimum contract, the versatility Batum provided the Clippers on both ends of the floor was incredibly underrated throughout the whole year. Throughout the year, Batum arguably played 3 or 4 different positions. He began at small forward, then started playing more power forward, and then even played at center for them in the playoffs in their small ball lineup. He played great defense for them and shot over 40% from the 3-point line while doing it. And while it will be difficult to pry him away from the Clippers, they definitely need to at least try. I don't think that money will be the main priority for Batum at this point in his career anymore, but they should immediately offer him whatever form of the mid-level exception that they have available to them. The Clippers cannot offer anything more than the Lakers can, so if they're lucky, maybe Batum would hop over to the purple and gold if the Clippers do not make him feel like an immediate priority. Now moving on to number 1 of my top 10 though, but before we do, I wanted to give an honorable mention to a few players who barely did not make my top 10, with those including Georges Niang, James Ennis, Tony Snell, Gorgui Dieng, Avery Bradley, and PJ Tucker. I really do like all of these free agents, and they each barely did not make the cut. It was very hard to narrow down, but due to either money or fit, I personally believe that everyone in my top 10 is a bit better of an option for the Lakers. But now, actually moving on to number 1, where we have Patty Mills. It was definitely hard to decide on who I want to be number 1, but when you consider everything that Patty Mills could offer to the Laker team, it's not that hard to put him at number 1. Obviously, he is a great 3-point shooter, which they need, but he also has a ton of playoff experience and has played in multiple NBA finals. That simply cannot be undervalued to a team like the Lakers, who are trying to compete for a championship. Patty would bring a championship mentality to their team, and while he is a veteran player, he is still on the tail end of his prime and could be what they are missing. Patty is not only a great 3-point shooter, but he is a high volume shooter and can make very difficult shots. He is a player that the opposing team needs to pay attention to, which would indirectly help both LeBron and Anthony Davis. Patty would help draw a lot of attention away from LeBron and AD on the court and completely open up their offense. Even when he does not have the ball in his hands, he is still a threat, and when you couple that with his ability to handle the ball when LeBron is off the court and to be a secondary playmaker, I think he would be a great addition to their offense. And while he is not a great defender, he is not a bad one either. Everything he could provide them with would make him a no-brainer target if he could be had for the right price. With that though, that will conclude the top 10 free agents that I believe the Lakers need to target. And what do you guys think? Do you agree with my top 10? Would you rearrange the order at all? Maybe add or remove a player? Or do you completely agree with me? Let me know what you think by commenting down below and we can talk about it there. I really do want to hear what you guys think about this one. That will do it for this video though. Thank you to everyone who took the time to watch until the end of the video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please remember to drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and turn on notifications to get notified right away when I drop a new video. And if you want to stay up to date on all my immediate thoughts and moves around the NBA, be sure to follow me on Twitter too. But as always, thank you for watching and have a great day.